Right, thank you. Right, so I think before we get too far into it, there's a small explainer that I've put together about aphasia, because aphasia is something, is different things for different people. There are about four, possibly five, but we're only talking about four types of aphasia, and they obviously touch people differently. I got a I got aphasia in 2019 when I had a bleed on my brain when I was working, and obviously that was quite a big change for me, and it took me almost the best part of a year to be able to do this sort of thing, for example, which my speech obviously is a lot better than it used to be. Or you don't know that, but it was. But before we start, maybe Michael, if you can run the little video, that'll just give people it's only about 3 minutes long. Just tell people what aphasia actually is.
More than 350,000 people in the UK are living with aphasia, a disorder of language and communication. Aphasia is caused by damage to the brain. Everyone with aphasia is different. The type of aphasia you have will depend to some extent on what parts of the brain have been damaged. There are different ways to categorize aphasia, but not everyone will fit neatly into these groups, and as communication recovers, symptoms may change. Some different types include Wernicke's aphasia, Broca's aphasia, anomic aphasia, and global aphasia. Wernicke's aphasia is a type of fluent aphasia. It happens when there is damage to parts of the brain that are important for processing the meaning of language. People with this type of aphasia will speak in long, complete, well-connected sentences with a normal rate, rhythm and grammar, but what they are saying may have no meaning or not make sense. They also won't be able to process or recognize the errors that they're making. Broca's aphasia is a type of non-fluent aphasia. It's caused by damage to the frontal lobe of the brain. People with Broca's aphasia can understand speech and know what they want to say, yet they can find it very difficult to find the right words. They will often use single words or short sentences that take a lot of effort. They may miss out some words or use sounds that are not clear. People with Broca's aphasia are usually aware of their difficulties and get frustrated when they're trying to talk. People with anomic aphasia have difficulties with word finding or naming things. They may have fluent speech, but have trouble retrieving certain words, especially nouns and verbs. They might use vague words like thing instead of the correct word, or try and describe an item instead of naming it. This can apply to writing as well as speech. Global aphasia is often related to multiple areas of damage to the language processing parts of the brain. People with global aphasia have severe language problems. They may not be able to speak, understand, read or write at all. Some people with global aphasia may be able to use some sounds and simple words to express themselves. They may be able to understand more than they say, although this varies. Some people with the condition learn to understand and communicate through gestures, facial expressions, and body language.
Right. So there won't be a test, by the way. So just a bit of background then. What happened to me was that I had I was so my job was I was a project manager in the EU projects area, and I used to run a number of projects about education and diversity and so on and so forth. So I was always going backwards and forwards into Europe, and I was due to go to a meeting in Madrid, and I had a meeting in London to get ready for it. And during the meeting, or while I was actually at lunch, I started to feel very strange. And then and when I got back, I couldn't. Somebody asked me to change something in a document, and I couldn't even see the words properly. I couldn't use my pen or anything. Anyway, long story short, I ended up in hospital, and they gave me an MRI. No, not an MRI. I can't remember the word. Anyway, they found that I'd had a bleed on my brain, which stopped fortunately fairly quickly, but it left me with the condition of aphasia. And so going from doing the sort of thing that we're doing now, actually quite a lot of presentations and that sort of thing, I got to the point where I couldn't do anything. So at the beginning, I couldn't read or write. In fact, I couldn't even remember my telephone number. So obviously, I had to have some training with speech therapy and so on. But before that, my wife decided that because we had to wait, because it's the NHS, we had to wait for something like 6 weeks, I think it was, before I could have any help. She got up. She decided to use flashcards to try and get me to get back to understanding what words were, and that was it. And we did some of this will be in the film, so I won't go too much into it. But anyway, I had to relearn basically both my speech and my writing and my reading, and even as we speak, my reading and writing is fairly poor. It comes and it goes. My writing is slightly better than it used to be, but I still have blanks, and it takes me a long time to actually write something. And reading, I get tired basically. I can read in my head, but I can't read out loud. So if somebody gave me something to read out loud, I would have a great deal of trouble with it. But I can, if I'm reading a newspaper, I can read most words reasonably well. So this probably took me about a year. I had speech therapy, which obviously helped me get back into getting my speech sorted out. But obviously my work stopped. I mean, it stopped at day one really, and obviously I couldn't continue doing what I was doing. So basically I was without work, as it were. And while I was going through rehabilitation, I met some people in Exeter who have a group of people with similar problems. So I went along to meet them, and met the lady that runs the charity, and she told me a lot of things. That what really happens is if people get aphasia, once the actual the NHS, if you like, stops working, that you've finished your however many sessions of speech therapy or whatever, there's nothing to take its place. So it's people like this lady in Exeter who runs a small charity to pick up the pieces, as it were, and help people to get back into normal life, I suppose. So listening to all this, I thought, this is actually ridiculous, that nobody really knows what goes on here. And if you ask most people in the street, they won't know what aphasia is still. So I thought, well, the best thing to do that I could do was to make some sort of make a documentary that shows what aphasia is and how it affects people, and push it out, as far as we can, with as many people as we can. So this is partly of why we're here. Obviously, this is the sort of thing I'm trying to do with lots of organisations and even the NHS, who are interested in seeing what I've done and the information. So I made this documentary, which took about two years, actually. What with one reason or another, it took about two years. I had to raise some money so that we could do the filming and get people involved and so on and so forth. So I now have someone working on PR for this. So she runs and keeps things running, and we look for new opportunities for people to find out about aphasia through the film. So that's me. Maybe we can see the film now, so that will perhaps put a bit more concept into this. Right. So this is a film called On the Tip of My Tongue. This is a documentary that I made with some people who've had problems, who have aphasia, and also people who are involved in it, charities and so on and so forth. So I think if you run the film, I think hopefully it'll explain a lot of what goes on.
When he eventually came round, he had lost his speech, but he was lucky to be alive, really.
He phoned me to say that he wasn't feeling terribly well. He was feeling confused, and what he said to me was that he was having trouble finding his worms.
Me being like a 20-year-old girl, and I'm saying, sorry, I can't read. Can you read that menu for me? I find that's quite embarrassing.
Somebody said, oh, could you just change that document that we're working on? Could you just change that line there? And then I realised I couldn't.
About 350,000 people in the UK suffer with aphasia, yet few have ever heard of it. Aphasia is a language disorder caused by an injury to the brain, making it difficult to talk, understand, read and write. Second only to cancer and Alzheimer's, it has the largest negative relationship to the quality of life.
I was getting ready for a trip to Madrid for a meeting, and I was having a pre-meeting in London when I started to feel very strange.
He ended up in ULCH and was given a CT scan straight away. They obviously recognised that he was having a stroke.
He was a very talented sportsman, football, cricket, tennis and golf. A very good teacher, loved his job, and of course that no longer was a possibility for him. So his world has become much, much smaller. He'd been to watch the cricket at the Oval, and left early because he was driving the minibus the next morning and crossed the road at Vauxhall and was hit by a cyclist. Hit the curb and ended up at King's College Hospital where they operated for a bleed on the brain.
When he got to the hospital and they did the CT scan, the doctors phoned me and told me that there was actually a bleed on the brain in what is known as the Broca's area.
Broca's aphasia is a type of non-fluent aphasia. It's caused by damage to the frontal lobe of the brain. People with Broca's aphasia can understand speech and know what they want to say, yet they can find it very difficult to find the right words. They will often use single words or short sentences that take a lot of effort. They may miss out some words or use sounds that are not clear. People with Broca's aphasia are usually aware of their difficulties and get frustrated when they're trying to talk.
To find the words was difficult for him. And from what I could gather, the words were in his head, but they weren't coming out through his mouth.
When he eventually came round, he had lost his speech, but he was lucky to be alive. Went back to work, shadowing his head of department. And then we got a phone call Christmas morning and he'd had a massive seizure.
The psychologists were assessing him and getting him to look at words and see if he could recognise them, draw little pictures, etc. And he was having a few problems with those.
And then red-lighted to the Brompton Hospital, where he was there for another several months.
Global aphasia is often related to multiple areas of damage to the language processing parts of the brain. People with global aphasia have severe language problems. They may not be able to speak, understand, read or write at all. Some people with global aphasia may be able to use some sounds and simple words to express themselves. They may be able to understand more than they say, although this varies. Some people with the condition learn to understand and communicate through gestures, facial expressions, and body language.
When people have strokes, the first 3 months are the most important because that's when the most progress is made.
The main treatment for aphasia is speech and language therapy. Therapists can assess the problems and help with improving communication. They can also support with alternative communication methods, for example, using technology, as well as helping the person with aphasia and their family adjust and adapt to language changes.
So I'm a retired speech and language therapist, so I've met a lot of people and families who live with aphasia as a result of a brain injury. Aphasia is quite an isolating condition. It's life-changing, and it can last a lot longer than people think. They will make progress, but you're always probably going to have some loss of the ability to use your words for speaking or writing.
It was a little while before we could get any speech therapy. So I read up about it and went out and bought some flashcards.
The flashcards were children's flashcards, and they had animals. What picture of this, picture of that. Writing was still a problem. I couldn't write. If I had elephant on a flashcard, I couldn't write elephant down.
Aphasia recovery is a complex process. But amazingly, our brains have some ability to recover and reorganize even after illness or injury. This is called neuroplasticity.
At the beginning, I could do less than half a page, and it got really tiring because I'm trying to struggle through each word. Writing was also extremely tiring because I didn't know the words. I knew the words in my head. This is the thing that's strange about aphasia, is that in your head, all this is going on fairly normally, and then when you try and put it on paper, it just doesn't work.
And the opportunity came up for me to make a drop-in group for people with aphasia sustainable. a place where people could come and walk through the door and go, oh, they get it. They understand that it takes me 10 minutes to put my message across, or I need to write things down, or they need to write things down for me, or I need to draw diagrams. And that's just a massive joy for people.
When he had his stroke, is that immediately afterwards you feel incredibly alone. You are disconnected. There are thousands of people all there, but you're just not part of what's going on. And it is utterly depressing.
At first, when I had it, some of my friends were really supportive. They researched online and everything. They try voice noting me, see what works and what didn't. And they're amazing. I think they are really good friends. But sometimes when I had my stroke, I think I was released from hospital, and because aphasia was not well known as a stroke, I think it was because cut it.
When you actually started the charity, was it difficult to get people to understand what you were trying to do?
Well, the drop-in group already was in a format run by the speech and language therapy team, but there was only about 6 people came, but they kept coming. So I knew there was something really, really important about this group. And come to our group and meet people and you think, well, what's wrong with them? They can talk, they look perfectly fine, there's nothing wrong. But they might have a problem with their reading. They might not be able to write a text message. They might not be able to understand the newspaper. That is as devastating as not being able to converse for your self-esteem, for your well-being, for who you are. The Stroke Association are great. They've got much, much better at supporting people with aphasia. I think partly because aphasia is such a difficult thing for people to understand, people don't donate to it because it's so difficult to describe what it is. And that's maybe why it's never actually got its recognition, whereas Parkinson's, although there's less people with Parkinson's than there is with aphasia, everyone seems to know what Parkinson's is, but if you mention aphasia, they're like, well, I don't know what that is. What do you mean you can't find your words? I can't find my words. No, it's completely different. And everyone goes, oh, you look fine, but it's deeper than that. It's about your self-esteem. If you can't understand a joke or crack a joke or follow a fast conversation in the pub or do order something at the restaurant or something, that's kind of long, day in, day out, a real sort of killer for your self-esteem.
One thing you learn with dealing with anyone with aphasia is patience. But Dan has epilepsy now as a result, but he is resilient and good-humoured.
The Royal College of Speech and Language Therapy have set up a fantastic scheme called Communication Access, which helps businesses train up their staff to be better able to communicate.
The future of how technology can help people with aphasia is looking very bright. With the advancements of machine learning and artificial intelligence, speech recognition systems are getting smarter, and those with aphasia will be able to use them more efficiently.
Actually, it's a year since I became a trustee of Living with Aphasia, and I really worked hard on that. And it's helped me in so many ways, like I do all the social media, and I do the blogs for the website. You say, but that's writing, so how do I do that? But there's ways around it. So I talk into my phone or my device, or rather than writing it.
He's volunteering 2 days a week.
And so you work in the shop, so you do all the...
Yeah, so 2 hours.
Right, good.
This is good.
You meet people as well?
Yeah, the dogs.
With working with Solo in the shop, she's done some really good things with him.
Tuesday and Wednesday, 10 till 4. And he walks here in the morning and then walks home at night, unless it's raining, and then I'll pick him up.
Yeah, it's exactly.
Yeah.
It's just raining.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah, we don't like rain.
Yeah, that's perfect.
The charity is run not by me, it's run almost by the people with aphasia, because losing your ability to use words does not mean you've lost your intelligence. So we've got a lot of trustees who have aphasia, and we've got a lot of decisions that are made in the group, by the group. And again, sometimes living with aphasia, you get those decisions taken away from you.
I think it's so important that people see the invisible things rather than the, oh, you've had a stroke, oh, you've had a brain injury. See aphasia for what it is, and everyone's different, and everyone's story is amazing and remarkable in their own way.
Making this film about aphasia has helped me understand more about the problem and how people deal with it, whether they're young or old. And what comes out of it is that people adapt and they leave good lives.
I think I've learned that to live with aphasia successfully, you have to have a sense of humour, because life's so difficult, and you've just got to laugh to make it okay. So there is an enormous amount of laughter and joy and friendship and support that people get, that is a little bit magic, and that's kind of what keeps me going. And I see the relatives getting support, and I see people with aphasia getting support, and it is a little bit of magic actually watching.
Right. So that's it.
Well, Jonathan, congratulations on a fantastic film. That was brilliant, and yeah, just really insightful and positive, and really informative film. I learned a lot, and just great to hear all those first-hand stories from people living with aphasia and their family members and carers as well.
Helpers, yeah.
I'd now just like to introduce Denise Saul. Denise, it's lovely to see you again after a few years, and Denise and I were in touch a few years ago when Carers UK ran a creative writing competition for around 5 years, and I remember an event in East London where you came to read some of your poems for us, which was lovely, about your experiences of looking after your mum, and I just happened to over the summer be hearing a podcast of Denise reading one of these poems from her latest book. So yes, so Denise is a poet and a fiction writer, and so I was meaning to get in touch with Denise anyway to ask if you'd like to join one of these sessions, but then when Jonathan contacted us about the film about aphasia, I thought, oh, I'll get in touch with Denise, because I think that was my first real experience of hearing about aphasia from Denise. So Denise, welcome. It's great to see you again. It'd be lovely to hear you read a few of your poems.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So this is my book. I don't know if you can see it, The Room Between Us. And I started writing about the experience of aphasia because my mother experienced aphasia after experiencing a stroke as a result of a clot in the brain. And I couldn't find any poetry books about the experience of a daughter caring for a mother who had aphasia and also was a stroke survivor. And during that period where I was a carer, I made notes and observations because the conversation between myself and my mother became very much challenging. There were moments of silence. So this collection is a reflection of my observations and also for my mother's voice. I wanted to capture my mother's voice and her experience, which was held within the body. So I'll just first of all read The Right Room. There is a moment for meditation when the doctor leads me into the room with table, bed, and cupboard. When he leaves, I look out of the small window. There's a view of other windows, unknown. I never thought I would make peace with noise, chimes of the midnight bell, traffic, low-flying planes remind me that God is a never-ending white ceiling. I look at the right hand that does not move on the cushion, and I name it Paula. The clenched fingers look like a woman's head, and this is where I locate a mouth in this small fist. One aspect of aphasia is that it forces us to be more creative with language. And the conversation I created with my mother was from drawings, it was from gesture, it was from pointing. So our conversation became very much colourful and in some sense beautiful. Left-hander. I was trying to get her to explain what she wanted to wear. Perhaps writing is the order of remembering. She tried to draw what she wanted to wear. The right-hander writes with the left hand. She has written table twice to recognize the difference. She leaves alone the letter A. I see a word among the doodle of lines. Again, I remind her to put down the pen. There was more to be done. I saw her look at my drawing on the page. I guess you get to a point where writing does not matter. It's quite interesting what Jonathan had to say about communicating and about using prompts. Minor variations. She squeezed my wrist, which meant I must carry on talking. There are 2 major hand gestures and 3 combined signs. I used 2 minor variations to tell her that I understand. The same fingers that confer a blessing can point to the window. No 2 hands are alike. The left hand holds the affected right arm. What she leaves out describing are the days of the week. She points too much, but no one has told her to stop. I found the documentary quite interesting that we just saw. And my mother experienced Broca's aphasia. but there was moments of overlap with the other types of aphasia, but it was mainly Broca. A daughter's perspective. When morning arrives, the radio stops speaking. Now, instead of hearing my mother speak from one infinitely distant and divine point of view, further points of view are included in our conversation. If I stand in front of the window and look at her wheelchair, the person in front of me seems to be smaller, the closer she is. I rub hand cream into the back of her hand, starting at the wrist and working away from the heart. The nurse told me that it was better to massage away from the heart and not towards it. My mother opens her left hand and I pour some cream in her palm. She massages the back of my hand. I talk to her about work, neighbours, and when she would be coming home. A representation of a scene is often one simple conversation. I asked the physiotherapist about walking with a cane. In the beginning, I thought she said that walking was possible. Even though I asked her before about leg supports, she said never and wheelchair. But since my question did not produce an answer, I repeated it. She stood still, looking around the room as though she had never been here. On the second visit, I did not expect an answer from her because I'd asked the same question twice. In the evening, I read Paul Broca's Memoir d'Anthropologie. My mother recites sentences from the left hemisphere. In the mindfulness of listening, Sundays at home, at home. There was one moment where I was really trying to get my mother to communicate. And there were periods of silence within that. And this is one reflection of that moment. Someone walked into a garden. He's the same one who gave us the word and took it away when we sat in the garden where bindweed climbed the wall. A bracket of cowslips gathered under the dogwood. This was where we heard him count 7 days into a week. We saw someone who looked like you, and when she turned around, it was me talking to myself. And I have dreamt this before, someone who walked into the garden. I know it's you when I talk with the God of Roses. I have dreamt this often. I kept a notebook of observations of my mum. And these were the times where I could not create a conversation with her. And there were moments of real silence. Observation. From the front room, she looked at the roses. Her body leant towards the left side of the leather armchair. I would have to reposition her right leg on the footrest. The sky was unclear with rain clouds. I wondered if she was bored with me or the television. She waved to me and I waved back. I really wanted to capture the experience of a carer because sometimes the carer's voice is silenced. The meeting. The neurologist told me to have a cup of tea in the family meeting room. He said, as you are the main carer, at the start of each sentence. The women hid their tongues when men did not listen to them. The women in their beds cried to the nurses. My questions did not produce simple answers. It was Monday, which meant another day had started. The women answered questions with their feet and eyes. I looked for comfort at my sister, but she was reading the leaflet. The women closed their mouths because shoulders could speak for them. As he spoke, I kept my eyes fixed on his face. It might have helped us to know this last night, but perhaps it would not have. We looked at the second MRI image. He reminded me about the cup of tea. Sometimes as a carer, our spaces can be filled with prayers. A prayer that may be said before she wakes. Thy will be done. Will you not teach me how to kneel in the temple of the garden? There is no morning prayer for us. Oh Father, you bring me back to a place where I must wake each morning. How I feel some belief in closing my eyes, but find days of stillness and turbulence in the line, thy will be done, when I cannot walk away from the call of a magpie. I can do nothing but listen to his words. Hallowed be thy name. He says magpies rest wreaths of yarrow on fallen birds. Thy will be done. If I say so, so be it. There is only one person who hears. The ear relieves itself by hearing different bird songs forced upon it. I have enough March-like days to sit on a garden bench. I am cold all over. Sometimes with grief, we try to find sound, and we try to find different experiences through colour. A woman travels in search of sound. On the move again, this time to Surrey, but I could not take with me all the plants my family left behind. The row of simple petunias made their last appearance this summer. All the plants, I hear them, and the quieter they are, the more I hear them. The breaking sound of twigs comes to me as I clear away leaves under bushes. A helicopter overhead circles the house. Its presence breaks the many silences of grass. I hear all the registers of flowers. Newton was not the first to make a connection with the ways of green. It's part yellow and part blue. Here the petunias follow mother's ordering of size rather than of importance. Even with the final walk from the side gate to the removal van, I hear the unequal division of sound between the tread on a concrete path and quiet water pooling beneath the gutter. And this is the last poem, Retrograde. When Mercury moves backwards in mid-August, I am reminded of the smallest things, like that warm night when you let a headscarf fall on the floor, but could not pick it up, though you held my hand. What I said to you before opening a back door to the patio, I could not remember. I was convinced the summer breeze would cool us down. What bothered me most was I heard someone call your name from the yard, but you could not see anyone. There have been other strange nights not as dim, when I stood in the rain to watch earthworms break up soil, knowing the earth makes us small. Over here, Mercury seemed to move away from us in the beginning, but in truth, it never moved at all.